Leela, the proud poly kinky queer slut. Today's question is, what does safety third mean? So safety third is a concept that I picked up at Burning Man. I've been Burning Man 4 times, but not for a while now. It's this idea that safety is important. Safety is not always the most important thing. Safety is the third priority. So it's form, function, safety. So it's a way of giving yourself license to take a little bit more risk. So it's not saying don't consider risk. You absolutely do need to consider risk, and you need to take safety into account. And when you're doing anything, and there's a Burning Man joke that is that was a safety fourth moment when something goes wrong with safety, meaning they did not consider safety third. But it is saying, as opposed to safety first, where safety is the most important thing. It is saying safety is not always the most important thing. Sometimes it's important to consider, your experience, what you want, to push yourself. And that means getting outside of safety. So another way to think about this is that if you're always keeping yourself 100% safe, you're also not pushing any boundaries and exploring parts of yourself that you might otherwise not. And another thing to keep in mind here is that there's a lot of fear that we are kind of surrounded by in our world. And it's also a natural human reaction to assess, to be afraid of things in our environment, to be like, oh, something horrible could happen if I do this, so I should be afraid of it, without looking at the likelihood that that's going to happen. So, for example, you might be really afraid that if you walk down the street in the city in the middle of the night, that you're going to be attacked by somebody. Well, the odds of that are actually probably pretty small. Maybe higher than in some other places, but still pretty small. Very, very unlikely that you would get attacked, but we still are afraid of that. So this is also getting to applying that concept of assess the threat and the risk of that threat. So how you do that is like, okay, so there is a risk that I might get, or there's a threat that I might get hit by a car. There's a threat that if I cross this street, I might get hit by a car. The risk of that is pretty high if I just wander into the street, but not 100%, but maybe 20% if I just wander into the street blind on a busy street without paying attention, because they'll probably break. But you can do things to mitigate that risk, to reduce your risk. So if you stop and look both ways and proceed when it's safe to cross the street, or at a crosswalk and use a crossing light and also look both ways, then you're significantly reducing your risk that threat that you're going to get hit by a car is going to happen. So it's taking that and applying it to other things in life. So for example, that's a good example. Let's say I want to go swimming at a naked beach, and I'm concerned that somebody might take pictures of me and post them on the internet. So the threat is that there might end up being naked pictures of me on the internet. The risk of that happening is pretty low if it's in a place where there are no cameras allowed. It's pretty low if you're going, if your friends are not the ones taking pictures of you. It's also pretty low if you're, going to a place where that's not what people are doing. It's not the social thing. Your risk is much higher if you're going to the beach with a bunch of your friends and you're planning on doing a naked photo shoot. So yeah, it's just like what is the risk? What is the threat? How scary is this really? This applies to STIs a lot. It very much applies in kink. There are many, many things we do in kink where the first consideration is, what experience do I want to have? Why do I want to do this? What do I want to feel like when I'm doing this? So that's kind of the form. The second consideration is, how on earth do I go about doing this? How do I get what I want? I want to feel all these sensations. How do I get that? Who am I going to do this with? Who am I going to, how are we, who am I going to do it with? Where are we going to do it? What toys are we going to use? How are we going to pull this together? And then the third consideration is the safety. The third consideration is, what are our risks? There's a rack sheet, risk-aware consensual kink. So what are the risks that I need to be aware of? And then how are we going to mitigate those risks so that I'm only taking the risk so that I'm reducing the risk that the harms could happen? So So yeah, I really like safety third as a mantra, as something that just sticks in my head, because it reminds me that that it's not just about being safe, 100% safe and always safe. It's about taking a look at your risk and choosing what risk you want to take and pushing yourself a little bit. Because frankly, a lot of the things that we're afraid of, the threat's either not very significant or the risk of it happening is not very high. So, not everything, but a lot of times. So, by looking at it that way, you can make an educated decision about, or for yourself, about what you want to do and how you want to put out there and what you might get out of it. So, for me, that's really helpful for pushing my boundaries, and pushing my boundaries is really helpful for finding them, for finding where my actual edges of comfort are and learning more about myself. And I really enjoy that process of self-discovery that comes from, being a little unsafe sometimes. Not a lot unsafe, not safety fourth or 10th, but safety third, a little bit unsafe. So thank you very much for listening. This is Leela, the proud poly kinky queer slut. You can ask me anything by emailing me at kinkyqueerslut@gmail.com. Have a great day. Proud Poly Kinky Queer Slut is art. It is made for entertainment purposes only. I am not a subject matter expert on any of the topics discussed. Please do not rely on anything presented here as fact. Think for yourself, do your own research, make your own decisions. To submit a question, please email kinkyqueerslut@gmail.com.